Certainly, there's no question when we talk about news and where that's heading, we've seen a lot of big changes and where that's going. I've got Dan Finch here. You're with co-founder of Simplestream,
Yep.
and you've been doing a lot of work with GB News and some transformation and helping them move into some different areas. So maybe just in a nutshell, Dan, you can bring up a couple of quick slides here and tell me about your partnership with GB News and also what Simplestream does.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Stan. So Simplestream is a OTT services provider. We provide a broad range of OTT services and features for broadcasters mainly, but also work with content owners, sports rights holders, and federations that essentially want to reach a wider audience that DTH and DTT transmission perhaps can't do. And so we were fortunate enough to be involved with the RFP process with GB News to help them launch their channel on a multi-platform basis from scratch. And it was a complex project because speed to market was a key thing for them to look at. And we managed to pull together, I guess, all the necessary elements that they needed in under 10 weeks as a project. And this was during lockdown as well. So it was a challenging task, given that everybody was working remotely. But we essentially looked after their integrations from their playout provider, and then worked with the advertising partners as well that they wanted to work with to monetize their content. And effectively, it was across not just live streaming, but having an automated catch-up service, an on-demand area within all the apps. And for the key for them was monetization as well. And we can come on to that in here. So one of the key things that we looked at was actually how we can integrate third-party providers almost on their behalf. So we were basically the coordinator of the sort of the project in a way, almost like a systems integrator role, bringing everybody together, whether that was from their playout provider, being Redbee, having a platform where journalists can push content and articles from, doing integrations with Mediability and Publish Labs, and then also the monetization elements provided by the Daily Mail in conjunction with Google Ad Manager. And so this is our high-level architecture that you can see here that really simplifies what was actually quite a complicated project. When we started, we have an app platform that we offer to our customers, and they can be configured depending on the requirements of that partner. And so we wanted to launch them initially on five platforms, being iOS, Android, tvOS, and Apple TV. And we're in the process of rolling their services out onto additional platforms, really to help with increase their reach, which is certainly going up and up over the period. We also provide for them a software-based media manager solution, and this allows them to have all their live streams, all their catch-up, all their VOD, all in one place. And so the workflow we created around the advertising insertion was working with, say, Redbee Media, and taking those SCTI 35 markers, putting them into the live stream, but then having the ability to replace those live streams with new ads in the live stream. And then in addition to that, through the video on demand, it was about having the VOD assets where they could do pre-rolls and multiple mid-rolls around their content as well. So when you add it all up together, it's a good sort of end-to-end solution, but also leveraging good integrations with third-party providers as well. And in terms of monetization, it's worth just mentioning about perhaps the differences between client-side advertising, where it goes to advertising is triggered by a player through to actually server-side ad insertion where the video is stitched within the video stream. And that was I guess that's the advantage for a broadcaster in that regard, is so that it avoids the ad blockers that you perhaps get on websites. So they definitely get the advertising served. And then when you add in the return path data you get on the end user, that's quite valuable to to the broadcaster. And then, as a sort of a final note on the analytics side, I think this is actually one of the most powerful things if we look across the industry and how it's changed, and what OTT services now provide broadcasters is real granular data on their end users. And it doesn't have to be specific around the end user and their viewing habits, it's actually around the content as well. So a content owner can now see in real time who's watching their content, on what device, for how long, and perhaps where they are in the country as well. And if we look at over that period from when they launched in June 2021 to April this year, their service has grown month on month, and in terms of hours, their consumption is going up and up. And
Well, that's actually an impressive number. 77 minutes average playtime per user. That's just
yeah, so they're coming in, they're watching long form content, and even on the smaller devices. So
that changes the whole dynamics, because everybody says anything over 10 minutes is a waste of time.
yeah, yeah. Well, I guess over the last year, there's been a lot of news. So
Well, maybe. Fair enough.
so yeah, and when you add in the unique users, I guess from their perspective, they're looking to increase their reach, increase their revenues, and news as an asset, its value is in live or perhaps near live and highlights. So I think being able to provide them those tools to either syndicate live channel feeds to other platforms is one thing, and also the ability to syndicate, package up maybe highlights packages and syndicate them to perhaps non-broadcast environment. It could be in hotels, it could be in planes, it could be in all these different areas where people want to be able to consume content not live or near live. So we've been delighted with the work we've put in for this particular project, and I think the customer's been pretty happy as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, you had up on one of the slides there, radio. How does radio fit into this?
Yeah, so with radio, they had a provider that was providing their radio stream, and we manage that as a sort of as an MP3 sort of unit, but we treat it in a similar way to video. So we can create a radio player within the app, and it's a pervasive player, which means that if your app is minimized, the player will still play. So you can have it on in the background. And then there's a whole other element to that around doing ad insertion again on that live feed, as well as having the ability to do a catch-up version of the radio as well. So we're in a position where we can adapt what we've built for video, but also apply it to audio as well. So and it's be able to syndicate radio feeds as well is important for GB News.
So GB News is a free service. How do they monetize it, and how do you help?
So on the live linear feed, they have their deal with their chosen ad provider, and that ad sales house will sell advertising in the same way that a traditional broadcaster would. The elements that we bring to the table would be doing those ad integrations, starting with the markers that you need to insert into a stream, to then pull through either on a programmatic level, advertising then gets served, and then they'll be able to see in real time the cost per thousand that they're perhaps making from that ad insertion or ad pod, and then that can be applied across multiple devices. So from a broadcaster's perspective, they get to monetize their normal channel that's perhaps delivered via DTT or DTH via their traditional media house. And then on top of that, they can then monetize it further by doing perhaps targeted advertising around the end user. So if they wanted to perhaps target a commuter on the way to work that's watching a live stream, now you can do that. So you can target a user by day part, genre, almost device as well. And that's quite powerful to
Well, are we
broadcast.
really at the point where personalized advertising is like a solid business, or is it just still growing?
Yeah,
'Cause it's been quite a pain for a long time.
yeah, I think it's still growing, and I think there's a lot of work to be done. I think people don't mind ads if they are relevant to them. There's a fine line, I think, between becoming like invasive with advertising, where perhaps there's some websites, for example, that might pick up what on the audio, perhaps on what you're talking about, and then suddenly you find that you're getting a targeted advertising based on that. That's quite invasive. Where this is more traditionally around your viewing habits, and when do you sign up as an end user? It's, I guess, having a user profile. So your traditional person that perhaps watches the news channel will be a certain demographic, and I think that's when the advertising is perhaps more relevant and less intrusive.
Well, one of the announcements last week was, about Disney and Netflix, and they're both going with their advertising,
Yep.
AVOD, and where that fits in. Who's going to be first? Who's going to be ahead of it? So it'll be really cool to see whether or not they actually hit, the personalized level or not. I suppose when it comes down to movies, you've got a little different aspect of understanding sometimes what the viewership is, but not
Yeah.
always.
Yeah, I think with AVOD businesses, and if you look at, let's take Disney and Netflix as perhaps the largest SVOD services. There's a whole market out there who will probably never pay for content because they are just free-to-air users. And I think you will see the likes of Netflix and perhaps Disney as well having almost going back to the linear channel world and having a linear AVOD service to perhaps upsell people into becoming a subscriber, or actually being able to provide that targeted advertising, because the tech is there now. I guess it's just time to enable that, starting with their first territory, to work out through, can they make just as much money through advertising than they do for perhaps their
Well,
subscribers.
when I look at the 77 minutes there, and I'm thinking, we have the couch potato
Yeah,
mentality of I'll just turn the set on and watch it. And then, of course, we hit the next generation that's like, no, I want everything on demand. I want to decide what I'm watching.
yeah,
But then I see that stat there, and I'm thinking, well, if we're moving over to AVOD services, maybe people will start linear, but I've started it whenever I want, but then it'll just keep flowing until they
Yeah.
time out.
yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's, everyone, I think the thing that everyone is competing for is time, a time to watch. And if, video, I think the average consumption is still way above 4 hours a day from the average end user. That 4 hours used to be TV, and now it's everything.
So that
It's-
brings up another really interesting point, and I'm going to hit this run ahead with you because you've been around for a while. You were at ITV, you've been growth, and then you've co-founded this operation.
Yeah.
But when you look at some of the play-out things going on, you can play out at 1.2 times the speed, 1.5 times the speed. So are we going to start seeing people using that more? Obviously, on a YouTube clip of how to fix my razor, that's cool.
Yeah.
Because I really don't want to hear how he took his dog for a walk
Yeah.
before he decided to do that.
Yeah,
But,
no, 100%. Yeah, I think if you put a programmer's hat on, then when you are commissioning a series, it's not just about commissioning 6 8-hour episodes. It's about commissioning 6 8-hour episodes, but also having short form content. So what's our TikTok strategy? What's our YouTube strategy? How are we promoting these series? What's our Facebook strategy? And it's all about, I guess, driving people to perhaps watch the long form content. But when these commissions are now doing these deals, they have to have this sort of 360 approach for commissioning, because if they just go and license 8 hours of content, it doesn't get surfaced anywhere.
Right.
And it's almost sometimes sometimes the brands or the series are bigger than the platforms that they're on. They're more popular. So if you took, say, Broadchurch, for example, that is on Netflix, that was a co-pro with the BBC, people just want to search Broadchurch. They don't suddenly think, oh, I need to go onto Netflix because I want to watch Broadchurch. They could go onto TikTok, they could go onto Facebook, and I think you will see other platforms playing, maybe not just short form content, but long form content as well. So I think it's an interesting space, and it's very much changed from over the last sort of 15, 20 years, where you'd have that straightforward commission, and the end customer was the platform that could have been Sky or Virgin or BT, and now broadcasters can now actually have a relationship with their viewers, and that's quite interesting for them, because they can then work out from a programming perspective what's their strategy around content acquisition, and should they be scheduling content in a certain way. Whereas before, and then there's a whole other conversation around barb and ratings and traditionally how broadcasters have been paid, whereas now it's changed slightly, and with the data that they get back, they can get higher cost per thousands and very much granular.
Well, you do get that mentality with people of they saying, oh, I don't watch TV. What they really mean is, I don't watch linear TV.
Correct. Yeah.
And where that fits in. And of course, when we were dealing on the broadcast side, it was hard to collect the stats and the data of who's watching and everything else. You had all the ratings, whatever, but where that came in, now you know exactly where you're doing that.
You do.
So when I look at what you do as a company, you're really the glue that puts all these other pieces together.
Yeah.
So a customer can use them without having to deal with everything separately.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think when we started our business, it was more around we just started in live streaming, and then we started to do live to VOD, and then we ended up doing video on demand, and then we thought, well, actually everyone needs to have an app platform as well. But we aren't all things to everybody. We come to places like IBC. We do our own RFP processes with companies that we think are dynamic and can fill perhaps a gap for our customers. It's almost like we do the hard work so they don't have to, but then we'll present it to them and we'll say, we think you should really look at this. It's going to do this for your business. So you're right. It's about being that glue to bring those sort of parties together. You
were showing nice people who work there that you're using them for stats as an example.
Yeah, exactly. And we have no ambition to ever become an analytics business. That's not our
your cup of tea, sure.
That's not our cup of tea. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
well, Dan, a great chatting with you today,
yeah,
and
too.
Thanks for stopping by.
Pleasure.